Yeah, sure. So Lease Simple is the first banking app dedicated to renters. So it's all about making renting more simple and more fair for renters. So you probably know that renting has become very expensive, especially in big cities in the US. It's very competitive as well. I mean, lending an apartment today in a city like New York, for example, it's very complex, and it's for a while because with the current context and the very high interest rates, people are going to like delay the home ownership, right? So it's going to like, take even more time for people to put down like a down payment. So they're going to rent for a very long period of time. So I don't know if you know this, but on average today, people are renting for 12 years, which is like already big and it's growing. So renting is for a while. It's complicated. It's very expensive. So we decided to like tackle this problem with a financial solution because renting it's not about finance because you have to pay your rent every month. This is like by far your biggest expense. The problem is rent payments are like completely disconnected from the financial ecosystem. So when you pay your credit card or when you pay a mortgage or a car loan, your bank and all financial institutions and credit bureaus know that you paid and it's taken into account in your credit history. But when you rent, it's not the case. Like 95% of the time, nobody else except for like you and your landlord know that you paid your rent, which is like totally unfair. There is a 100-point difference on average between the credit score of a renter and the credit score of an owner. So yeah, it's about like paying your rent, big monthly expense, connecting your rent payments to the financial ecosystem. But it's also about like saving money for your next move or for financing a down payment in the future. So your whole renting journey, it's a lot about finance. But today you don't have like a real solution really designed to help you, doing all of this stuff as a renter. So that's why we are creating Lease Simple. So it's a real banking app. So people have a real bank account and we enable 100% of renters in the US to super easily pay their rent online, to build their credit history using their rent payments, and to do like a bunch of other very cool stuff to help build, their financial health and social mobility and their future. So very short, description of what we do, but yeah, that's what we are building.
So very quick question, who is specifically the initial customer?
So we are targeting like mostly the new generation of renters, like Gen Z, people who are around 25 years old. So this is like all the people entering the adult life and the professional life. And those people have to like rent a place. Of course, they have to build their credit history. And it's like something like not very easy to do because when you are young, you don't necessarily have a lot of loans. Maybe you have like a student loan, but building your credit very early is something very important, and not having your rent included into that credit building stuff, it's like very unfair. So and of course, like young renters are moving very often. It's almost like once a year. So it's very important for them to be able like to build their credit and to be ready to move so that they can like tackle job opportunities, go live where they want, and land any new job that they would like to have. So yeah, it's primarily for those people that we are building Lease Simple.
How did you validate the customer problem and the demand for your solution? Did you use any specific methodologies or tools for this validation process?
Yeah, so we used a very sophisticated approach, which is talking to people. So, and that's the best way. So we talked to a bunch of young renters, and we had a lot of discussions around renting, how they see renting today, what's their plan for the future, what's their financial goals. I mean, we did like many discovery sessions, like dozens of discovery sessions with users, potential users, and we learned a lot. And people say, hey, of course renting is like something that I have to do. Of course, like my most important need. And yeah, people say, hey, it's very hard because when I want to find a new place, there is a lot of competition. If I don't have a good credit score in a city like New York, for example, it's not possible to rent a place. You won't be approved by any landlord. If you don't have like a credit score that is above 650, I mean, you're screwed. It's going to be very, very complicated. Plus, you have to prove that you are a good payer as a renter. People find it like very, very complicated because they don't have any like real tool to like prove that they have paid their rent consistently, in the past. Plus, they tell us like they have to put money aside for financing a future move. Every time people move, it's a lot of expenses. You have to pay for a new security deposit before you get the other one back. You have, of course, like to pay for any like moving cost that you may have. So yeah, I mean, people tell us all of this process is very complex, and yeah, this is how like we manage to like design the product and really like fine tune the solution by being super close to our users. That's super important.
I mean, let's talk about the market focus. I see that Lease Simple is initially targeting the US market, specifically New York. What led to this decision?
Yeah, so we decided to target New York first because this is the biggest rental market in the US. There is around 5 million, renters in the New York City area. If you take into account like the other cities in the metro, and rents are super expensive and it's highly competitive. So this is where Lease Simple can make the biggest impact, because this is where people really feel the pain of paying so much rent and having a lot of difficulties to rent a new place. So that's why we decided to go there. Plus, in terms of marketing strategy, we believe it's a good strategy to like focus the effort in just one region, as opposed to like spreading our different efforts anywhere. We believe it's like way more efficient to focus our effort in just one place, so we can be super close to the users, understand how they live, where they live, what are their problems, and then we can build a kind of network effect at the local level. So people can talk about Lease Simple to their friends and they can join the platform. So that's what we do today, and later, of course, we will like do the same in other big cities in the US. But now it's like, yeah, very local.
I mean, as far as I know, there are other players and solutions in the fintech real estate space. How does Lease Simple will differentiate itself from these competitors? So what will be your mode and also competitive advantage?
Yeah, it's a great question. So basically, if you talk about like, hey, if you talk about like paying the rent and using rent payments to build your credit, which is like the core of what we are doing at LeaseSimple today. And we will talk about like what we will do in the future later, but this is like what we are doing today at LeaseSimple. The competition is different, kinds of. First, you have some properties through their property management software, which are offering renters to report their rent payments to credit bureaus, which is kind of cool, even though the payment experience is a bit like crappy through, old payment portals, but it exists. The problem is it's only like a small fraction of renters who have access to this kind of, benefit, which is like super, unfair. If your property doesn't offer this benefit, I mean, you can't do it. Secondly, you have a couple of services which offer to like, connect your bank account to their platform, and then they can like detect your rent payments and report your rent payments to credit bureaus. The problem is it's not super, reliable because, it requires, their technology algorithm to like identify rent payments in your bank transactions, which is kind of, complex because people pay their rent like, with different payment methods, and they share their rent with their, roommates. So not very, very reliable. Plus, people already have like one payment method for their rent. So on top of that, they have to subscribe to another service just to report their rent payments to credit bureaus, which is like one more service on top of, what they are already using. So like not super convenient, plus not super reliable. And lastly, you have some people who offer rent payment through a credit card. So it's kind of, interesting at the first sight because, paying with a card is like, easy to do. Everybody, know how it works. The problem is we think it's a very bad financial habit, especially for young people, to pay their rent using a credit card. Why? Because it can put you in a very, bad debt spiral. So very bad. I mean, people pay their rent a very big amount with a card, and then they have to reimburse, that amount. So if people are short on cash, it can, create a very bad, debt situation for people. And secondly, when you have a credit card, you have a certain amount of credit that is like, allowed on your card. And the way credit bureaus calculate your credit score is using like different, data points. But one that is very important is what we call credit utilization. It's the percentage of your allowed credit that you are using every month. So if you are using like too much of your credit, like let's say on your card, you can pay up to like, 3,000 with it. If you use like those 3,000, like if you spend 3,000 on your credit card every month, it's going to hurt your credit score a lot. So that's why you have to keep your credit utilization at a kind of, lower, level. Like usually it's like 30%, 40% of your, authorized amounts that you have on your card. So paying your rent with a card can be very bad for that, and it can hurt your credit score. So if on one side, you build your credit by doing this, but on the other side, it hurts your credit score, it's like, a not very efficient way to improve your financial health. So that's like the overview of the competition. So where LeaseSimple, fit into that ecosystem, super simple. So first, 100% of renters can use LeaseSimple today in the US because we are giving people a real bank account to pay their rent, and we support all the method of payments that landlords accept. So you can pay your rent through LeaseSimple by sending a paper check to your landlord, or by doing a transfer, an ACH transfer, or you can use your LeaseSimple account number and routing number and enter that in your property portal, and you can have your rent withdrawn directly, from your LeaseSimple account to your property. So, and the only way to enable 100% of renters in the US to build their credit with their rent payment is to do that, is to give them a bank account. So we are the only platform who is actually doing this. And secondly, it's not debt based. No credit card, no buy now, pay later type of product. I mean, it's like all good for people's finance. So that's the two, very big angle where we place, LeaseSimple. If you do like the 101 kind of competition analysis, LeaseSimple is about 100% of renters and no debt.
I see. So Jeremie, should you tell about the core team? Why you think you are the right people of co-founders for this challenge?
Yeah, sure. So we have it's not the first startup that we build. So my co-founders and we have built a rideshare startup a couple of years ago in California. We were based in San Francisco. It's a startup called Wings. It's what we call a specialized transportation ride-sharing startup. And by specialized, it means that it's a great transportation mode for special occasions, like going for the airport, for example, or going to a doctor appointment. So if you take Uber and Lyft, they have highly disrupted the taxi industry. And that company, Wings, is about disrupting more like the limo industry, the type of rides that you take for certain occasions that you book in advance. So it's more secure, it's more predictable. The price is known in advance. Your driver is known in advance. So it's for that side of the market and the use cases. So we built that. We scaled that company in 25 cities in the US. We raised about 14 million at that time. So it was a pretty interesting experience, and we learned a lot about compliance, regulations, because when we started this company, what we were doing was kind of illegal because it was before California and other states in the US regulate ride sharing. So we were alongside Uber and Lyft to make that business model legal. So it's a very long story. I'm not going to go into details, but it was crazy times, and we ended up being legalized alongside Uber and Lyft. And after that, in order to operate, we had to contract very special kind of insurance to be able to insure the drivers and the riders. We had to have permits at the city level, sometimes at the state level, sometimes at the airport level. So with very complex kind of reporting that we had to put in place. So it was a very, very complex business model to put in place with a lot of regulations and compliance around it. So it's a great foundation for then building, a fintech, because fintech is also super regulated, and we have to, respect a bunch of laws and regulations. But that experience that we had before is very helpful building LeaseSimple today.
I mean, they say the failure is the best teacher. Can you share a moment or from your entrepreneurial journey that didn't go as planned, and what did you learn about it?
Yeah, I mean, I made many mistakes building companies. There is one that maybe is very, very important to share, especially for first-time founders. I think that, in my first startup Wings, one big mistake that we make, which is like classic mistake, is we raised too much money too fast, and we tried to scale too fast as well using that money, whereas the product was not like completely polished, and we were like halfway finding product market fit. We had like good signs of product market fit, but I mean, we were like, kind of halfway. So, and having a bunch of money at the bank, and the pressure of everyone around you, like investors and the team and ourselves, it's very intense, and you want to go fast, and you want to grow super, quickly. And at that time, we should have, taken more time to work more, on the product and make sure we were, good with the product market fit, and make sure that we had like a good, playbook in place in terms of operations, user acquisition, like everything, so that we can scale in a more healthy, way in different, other, locations. So that's a big mistake. I mean, a bunch of companies are doing that mistake. So it can be like a deadly mistake sometimes. In that case, it was not, because the company is still operating today and it's going quite well. But definitely, I won't do the same in the future.
You recently completed the Founders Fuel Acceleration Program. How was the experience, and how has it helped to change LeasePlan's business model or your plans?
Yeah, we've been lucky to go through the Founder Fuel program, which is a kind of, boutique accelerator in Canada. It's the best accelerator in Canada, and they deploy a lot of resources, to help companies. There is just like 7 companies in the cohort, so they put like a bunch of, resources and time to help us accelerate. And in our case, it's been like really amazing to work on the narrative around LeaseSimple. The fact that we position ourselves as a banking app for the new generation of renters, and to help, renters connect their rent payments to the financial ecosystem, and to build, their future. So that part was like super, helpful. And also we met great mentors, because the program is very organized around, putting you in touch with many mentors with very different types of profiles. And I can't go too much into details, but we have met with some people that, allowed us to accelerate a lot, whether it is like for the product, but also like for the very core technology that we are using as well. It was not like a question, but people who know fintech, they know that launching a banking app is very complicated, because you need to have like a banking partner, a bank, with you. Plus, you need to have like, a tech platform, what we call like banking as a service, platform, to allow you like, having in place all the tools and the tech, so that your users can have a real bank account, and so that you can use the banking payment rails and everything. And doing this is like very, very costly and very complicated. And we managed to do that through some connections that we had through the Founder Fuel program. And yeah, without that, it would have been like, much more complicated for us to execute and to build LeaseSimple. So yeah, great experience. I mean, I recommend every Canadian startup to go there. We are a US startup, but because I'm based in Montreal and because I'm French and Canadian, I've been able to join the program. But usually it's for a Canadian company.
Jeremie, are you raising right now more capital? Can you give us a snapshot of your current financial roadmap?
Yeah, totally. So we are closing actually our pre-seed right now. So we are doing a 750K pre-seed. We have closed more than 550K. So we are close to finishing the pre-seed. We are having a good momentum right now. So we should close the pre-seed in the coming weeks. The thing is, we are raising almost only with great founders and entrepreneurs, because beyond the money, we want to bring together the best possible group of startup operators, which is very important for us. So that's what we are doing, and yeah, so it's going well. So super happy about it. And globally, I mean, people know renting is a very big space. Rent payments represent $500 billion paid in rent every year in the US. It's a gigantic market, and the majority of this money is paid through checks. So with people renting for a longer period of time, people totally understand that it really makes sense to create a banking app dedicated to helping renters during their journey. So that's why we have a very good momentum around the funding, because people totally get the vision and what we are building. So that's really great.
And finally, Jeremie, what is a fun fact about yourself that not many people know?
A fun fact. I mean, there is one that I can share about the Founder Fuel program, because I mean we had a demo day. So and it was like a real show. They put us in front of 1,000 people, and I mean everyone can find the video online. It's on YouTube, and you can see the presentations of the entire cohort, like the 7 companies, and the feedback that I had after the demo day, after my pitch, was like, wow, Jeremie, I mean, you were so at ease on stage, so confident and everything, but I mean, I can tell everyone I was freaked out and I was so nervous about doing this. So it was very funny to see the kind of difference between what people perceived and what I saw from my own perspective before going on stage. I was terrified. It was a very very special experience. That's kind of fun.
I mean, Jeremie, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on this first episode. Thank you for sharing your experiences, wisdom, and of course, some fun facts about yourself. I wish you and Lease Simple all the best on your journey ahead.
Thank you, Burak. Thank you.
To our listeners, and also thank you for tuning into another episode of Startup Istanbul. Until next time, keep building and creating.